There's gonna be a lot of content coming soon. A lot of content coming soon. A lot of content coming soon.
RACROX.
Instead of focusing on one specific series, I'd like to simply talk about a genre of games I love with a passion: 3D platformers. A genre that is incredibly malleable, from fun, exploration-focused collectathons to skill-testingly, teeth-grindingly hard linear games. Back in my top 10 video, you'll notice that the final 5 entries leading up to number 1 are all 3D platformers. Each of those games and series, along with many others like them, are special to me, and even now, we still owe a lot to these games as they've helped shape the industry. Needless to say, it was sad to see them nearly die out for good. So, are they finally coming back, or are they still at risk of going extinct? That's what we're going to take a look at in this video. 3D platformers were coming out of the goddamn woodwork in the late 90s. You couldn't look anywhere without the enlarged cartoon eyes of those Nintendo and PlayStation mascots staring into your soul. These games were the hits of their time. They dominated the market and everybody wanted a piece of that action. Even still, these days were also very formative years for the genre. On one side, you had games like Crash, which perfected the linear level-based platforming for the third dimension. And on the other side, you had games like Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, and Spyro, which gave you these larger, open environments to explore in, making full use of the new dimension's potential. One common element all these games share, however, no matter which side of the spectrum, is playing on the player's need to collect shit. So if the 3D platforming genre was so popular back then, what the hell happened? We'll get to you bastards in a second. As the console generation shifted, so too did interest in 3D platformers. Technology was advancing and developers didn't need to limit themselves to low-poly cartoon characters anymore. Developers like Naughty Dog and Insomniac surrendered their old IPs to begin focus on next-gen possibilities. More 3D platformers. But after that, they moved on to what I can only describe as grittier games. I'm not saying this in a derogatory sense, both the Resistance and Uncharted series are ones I find quite enjoyable, but as it was certainly a departure from their previous work, was this shift in theming and gameplay a fully independent choice, or perhaps influenced by the desire to keep up with the now booming shooter genre? There's nothing I can say about my opinion on shooters that would contribute to the current topic, so I'll leave it at that. While I do think some entries are really fun, they've never really spoken to me outside a select few. What can't be denied is that this is the genre that overtook 3D platformers for top dog and what can only be considered as a hostile takeover.
We have a confirmed nuclear threat in the city. Nest teams are on site and attempting to disarm. I repeat, we have a confirmed nuclear... Everyone hang on!
Games like Call of Duty Modern Warfare and Halo 2 absolutely stole the show when online console gaming became a thing. It was simply smart business to go after this now huge market. There were some franchises that tried to keep up or even modernize their games in various ways, and, well, a lot of them weren't exactly helpful to the 3D platformer reputation. Now, all this said, the 3D platforming genre didn't die. There were some titles keeping the dream alive with quality gameplay, but it was clearly evident that this genre was not at the level it used to be, and interest was waning every year. Or so it seemed. In the past 7 years or so, we've seen a whole new wave of indie titles that take inspiration from classic NES and SNES games. This is in no small part because the kids who grew up with those games are now becoming game developers themselves, bringing back the kinds of games they love. More recently, we've seen this exact trend start to happen with 3D platformers, and not just in the indie market. Personally, while it's a bit isolated on the timeline, I consider the first sign of this to be Sly 4: Thieves in Time, released in 2013. I mean, what a passion project, you know? Sanzaru Games, the guys who remastered the original Sly Cooper trilogy, went up to Sucker Punch and basically just asked them, hey, you guys aren't doing anything with this IP and we'd love to see a new entry, can we make it? And they got it! If that's not incredible enough for you, the game itself is 100% a pure Sly game. It has everything the fans wanted. Sanzaru Games showed the world how to make a quality sequel to a game this day and age, and it wasn't even their IP. It was the ultimate fan-made game, and I hold on to hope that other devs like Naughty Dog will follow suit and maybe let someone else take the reins for a new Jak and Daxter game. I want to touch on crowdfunding for a moment because as of late it's become a pretty hot button topic for games as a whole, but even more so for the 3D platforming genre specifically. If somehow you don't know what this game is, as a quick recap, Yooka-Laylee is a 3D collectathon platformer made by Platonic Games, a game dev created by ex-Rare employees who got fed up with making Microsoft Kinect games. These are the minds behind some of the earliest 3D platformers, most notably Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, and Donkey Kong 64. Yooka-Laylee was set up as a Kickstarter campaign and hailed as the return of 3D collectathons. It reached its initial funding goal of £175,000 almost instantaneously, simultaneously, and by the end the backers had invested just over £2 million, nearly 12 times the original goal. So why bother telling you all this? Well, when the game launched back in April, it was met with some mixed reviews. Some reviewers loved the return to form and were happy with the final product. Others said that the experience was greatly affected by certain things like a buggy camera or some less than tight controls. Though it should be noted that although these issues may have been present in the review copies Playtonic sent out, they were quick to respond to the criticisms and produced a patch addressing most of these issues before the game officially launched for the public. Finally, and this is the most important one, a handful of reviewers remarked that the gameplay itself was too dated for the modern gaming market. Full disclosure, I did back Yooka-Laylee during its Kickstarter campaign. If that makes you see my view as biased, so be it, but honestly I believe that while Yooka-Laylee is not a perfect game, it doesn't deserve the quite shockingly harsh criticism it got from some reviewers. I'm not going to review the game here, but what I will say is that I did for the most part enjoy Yooka-Laylee, and I did feel like I got what I paid for. What I want to talk about is how Yooka-Laylee's reception affects the future of the 3D platforming genre as a whole, but not just yet, we're building to that. To cap off this crowdfunding segment, I'd like to shine some light on two other fan-backed 3D platformers that are coming in the near-ish future. The first game is Hat in Time, developed by indie dev Gears for Breakfast. Similar to Yooka-Laylee, Hat in Time aims to bring back the collectathon genre. The difference here is where Playtonic aimed to tug on our nostalgia strings by making a successor to their beloved original games, Gears for Breakfast aims to bring back the genre in a fresh, exciting new way with original mechanics and creative environments. By the end of the Kickstarter, Hat in Time had reached just shy of $300,000, nearly 1,000% of its initial $30,000 funding goal. As one last similarity, ex-Rare industry legend Grant Kirkhope is composing a bunch of music for the game. The second game is Psychonauts 2. You'd be hard-pressed to find anyone that likes 3D platformers that hasn't heard of Psychonauts, but oddly enough, I never actually played the original until September 2016, but boy am I glad I did. While not necessarily as open as my favorite games in the genre, it's certainly one of the more inventive and charming entries. The sequel was funded through Fig, which is a more unique crowdfunding service, and while it doesn't have any impressive stat like being funded 10 times or 12 times its original goal, given that its original goal was $3,300,000, it's no small feat that it was funded to 116%. The game really doesn't need any plugging, certainly not by me, but it goes to show the love people have for these games. It's pretty simple. Fans want their fun, colorful 3D platformers back and are willing to vote with their wallet. There are many other examples of 3D platformers, both upcoming and recently released, that deserve attention, and after this video I urge you to take a look at some of these as well. They aren't all the hyped up comebacks we were hoping for, and they have their fair share of flaws, but if you like this genre of games, then there's a decent chance you could find some enjoyment in these titles. Plus, you'll both help send the message that you want these kinds of games back, as well as support the people who are making them. Now, of course, there is one game that recently came out that is the hyped up comeback we were all hoping for. This game. This game. I don't know if I've ever seen such a shining beacon of hope before. The Crash Bandicoot and Sane Trilogy is nothing less than a truly authentic recreation of the first of Sony's two crucial pillars. Why is this such an amazing project? Because it's selling, because it's a quality game, because the marketing and community relationship behind it is absolutely stellar. This is Activision's deep pockets being used for something good, really good, and that's not something I thought I'd ever say. I've felt slighted by this company for just about a decade, but they have convinced me that they are capable of investing in real passion. I'm not naive enough to think that this isn't about the bottom line for them, but like I said, the Insane Trilogy is selling very well. I only hope this shows them that people buy passion. If you're on the fence about this game, whether you've played the original games or never even glanced at them, I implore you to
implore me? I implores you
to pick this game up. You'll be voting with your wallet, and that vote is to get real, quality, big budget, AAA 3D platformers back on the market. Okay, now that we've talked about how the game itself is impacting the current playing field, I want to loop back around to the issue addressed when talking about Yooka-Laylee, the reviews. I'm not gonna lie to you, Crash Bandicoot is a hard game, teeth-grindingly hard. And as authentic a recreation as it is, the first game doesn't quite feel exactly like it used to when moving Crash around.
This is weird. It's not weird, it's broken.
It's not broken, it's just...
It's broken.
However, this doesn't mean that it's bad or flawed or broken, it's just a little bit different. Even if you're accustomed to the old Crash 1 controls like I was, you get used to the very slight discrepancies quite quickly. But if this is by no means bad, then why is it relevant to the reviews of the game? Well, apparently there are some people that think that just because a game is difficult, whether it's actually difficult or they're just bad at it, or a combination of the two, it's a bad game. So why do these kind of Crash reviews and those negative Yooka-Laylee reviews matter? Because they discourage people from picking up the games. Listen, I am by no means saying that a game's flaws should not be called out in a review just because I want to see the game sell, and I'm sure in the case of Yooka-Laylee's review copies, the buggy camera and everything were present. But to give a game a bad review and possibly damage its sales, not to mention the future of the genre itself, just because you found it hard or personally didn't like the genre or style of gameplay, is both absurd and reckless to me. There's a difference between doing a review where you make it clear that what you're saying is your subjective opinion and that like-minded people may agree with you, which by the way is a statement that pretty much covers all of my content, rather than doing a review where you pass off your subjective views as if they are objective truth. That rant may have been a roller coaster. This is a highly emotional subject for me, and just like the developers of the Sane Trilogy, I am passionate about these games. There's one last thing to touch on, and it's all positive, so don't worry, it's all chill from here. The last thing to talk about is two huge games coming out this year, Super Mario Odyssey and Sonic Forces. Now, Sonic Forces isn't anything super new. We have the 3D boost gameplay that's sort of been a staple ever since Unleashed, and of course the 2D classic Sonic segments from Generations. I like both of these gameplay styles, so I'm perfectly happy to see Sonic return to them after a couple of lackluster games. Although this one was actually kind of okay. And in a twist DeviantArt has been hoping for, well, who even knows how long, your very own original character is now canon, complete with their own gameplay style, which seems to be a slowed down version of modern Sonic's gameplay. It's unclear whether or not original the character has their own stages and similar areas as modern Sonic, or if you just have the option to play as them in any modern Sonic stage. But either way, it's nice to see them implement a more platforming focused style into the 3D space. The plot's being done by the guy who wrote Sonic Colors and Generations though, so I wouldn't really hold your breath on it being anything more than serviceable. Honestly, why haven't they got the Sonic Boom TV show writers writing these games?
Look what I found at the flea market! Dude, is that Tomatopotamus too?
That's the best one in the entire series! Tomatopotamus never worked in 3D.
Game companies always ruin their beloved franchises.
And they never should have changed the color of Tomatopotamus's legs.
Well, whatever. I'm confident it'll be a fun game. Super Mario Odyssey. What a reveal. This game is the game I've wanted since New Super Mario Bros. Watered down the mainline Mario games, 2D and 3D, for what seemed like forever. Don't get me wrong, I love both Mario Galaxy games, and while not my favorite, I've been able to enjoy 3D Land and World, but man, Super Mario Sunshine is on a totally different level for me. I've already talked about why I love it, but Odyssey looks like it's going to be everything I love about it and more. Sprawling, open environments that you'll get to know with a level of familiarity. It's just impossible when you're blasting through levels on a world map. If I had to nitpick, the apparent lack of a hub world is a tad disappointing. I understand you could go inside the Odyssey ship, but there doesn't seem to be much to do in there, and just like the Starship Mario, seems to function as more of a world selector than anything. I probably would have at least liked something at the level of the Comet Observatory in the first Galaxy. However, Delfino Plaza is still unparalleled in terms of Mario hub worlds. The place was basically an entire world itself, so if we could one day see something like that again, I'd be super pleased. Honestly though, it's such a specific thing that I would never let it hinder my experience with the game. It's very possible that this game could usurp Sunshine as my favorite 3D Mario game. So, 3D platformers. Are they finally coming back, or are they still at risk of going extinct? I'd say for the most part, the outlook is good. I'm confident that with Crash's recent success in games like Super Mario Odyssey and Hat in Time on the way, that we won't need to worry about the 3D platformers' extinction. Will they ever regain the traction they lost as a once abundant genre? This is more unclear. I'm optimistic and hopeful for the future, but wary that things like unfair reviews could slow down or even limit the amount of these kinds of games we see if they continue the way they have been. I'm also not going to pretend that these games will reach the same popularity heights as games like Grand Theft Auto or Call of Duty, but I do think there's been enough gritty shooters through the last generation, and so many repetitive open world games this generation, that the outcry to bring 3D platformers back is spoken in volumes by the people who are willing to invest in the developers passionate enough to make creative, fun, vibrant worlds and levels to traverse with colorful characters. Now, Activision, for the love of all that is good, please make a Spyro Trilogy remake, please. Oh god, please. Please.
Hey, Knack 2 came out today.
What? Fuck it, platformers are saved.